they walk into a compound and like 38 of them just went to dust, man. They didn't see it.
Hey, thanks for being here, brother.
Of course, anytime.
Let's just start off. How about you just introduce yourself? Tell us your name, which branch of service you served with, the job you did, and maybe what years you served.
Yeah, of course. My name is Brendon Arbilon. I serve in the United States Marine Corps. I was a 1371 combat engineer. I served between 2017 and 2021, so recently out.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service. Talk to me a little bit about, where you were born and raised, and what your childhood upbringing was like.
Okay, yeah. So I was born in the Philippines, right? So
Oh, wow.
believe it or not, I was fresh off the boat, I guess.
Really?
You think about it, yeah. I've only been in America since 2014.
No shit.
So I was there for close to 17 years in the Philippines, especially in the parts of Mindanao. So super war-torn area, right? So I guess kind of like the culture never changed, right? Especially going into the Marine Corps, there's always that like camaraderie in it. So when I was younger, my dad was a provincial attorney, right? Which is I think the Filipino version of like a district attorney. And then my mom had a business in the Philippines. So obviously if you're like in a war-torn area and you are living with like, a district attorney and a businesswoman, it's not going to end well for you,
Right.
It's always been like, I guess guns and violence has been like a part of my childhood just from the beginning. It's crazy because my dad, when I was younger, I think hanging out with family, it was never alone, right? We always had like their like bodyguards and security guards. And I think literally like getting shot at was an experience outside of the Marine Corps for me. It was literally me as a young kid at 5, and we were coming back from my mom's business, and our convoy was getting shot at. And
Really?
at that point, I was like, oh my God, like I don't even know anything, right?
Dude,
Yeah,
why
coming back.
why were they shooting at you guys?
Because my mom had a mining business.
Uh-huh.
So that's the thing. So you mining business, you pay for the rebels to not mess with you, right? And you pay for the cops not to mess with you too. That's crazy stuff, It's corrupt at the time. Hopefully they change. I don't know.
You gotta pay them off, huh?
You gotta pay them off, and so if they want more and you kind of don't budge, hey, it's like Wild West out there, man.
No
So
shit.
that was my upbringing. I brought into a world where my mom and dad were always in constant like security, right? My mom carried, my dad carried, legally.
Yeah.
Always had bodyguards. I was in a kindergarten room, right, in a school, and I had 2 like bodyguards like outside of the room with like rifles and AR-15s and stuff.
Dude.
And it was a crazy childhood,
That's what I was just gonna ask. So even everywhere you went obviously it wasn't by yourself, but you had a whole entourage with you.
You had an whole entourage on you, man. It's
No
like there's
shit.
always because my dad was, provincial attorney, and he would always like, being part of that job. Like if you're right, I hope he was. Right, I was too young to know if he was right or not.
Right.
But regardless of what you do, right, either you veer to the bad side or the good side, you're gonna create enemies,
Yeah.
regardless. So they would never be able to let him back down, but until they get me, right. If they get me, that's it.
Right.
So me and my little brother, which was like 4 years younger than me, and when I was 5, that's the craziest thing that we experienced. Like as young kids, I was never allowed to actually like go out and have fun in the streets and all that stuff because I was forced into like the compound. Those like, I don't know if you watch Narco, right? But like those narco compounds,
Yeah.
like I was living in one of those when I was younger.
shit.
You would always have like securities roaming around, all that stuff, So they would always, that was my upbringing, right? I would get taken to school, taken back. High school, though, changed a little bit, right? The politics in the Philippines changed a little bit back in like 2009, 2008 timeframe. So they weren't allowed to have like bodyguards, I think, more than like 4 to like avoid having a private army. So that changed a little bit. When I was in high school, the school was a little bit further down, a little in a safer area where it's like kind of like a neutral peace town. So I was a little bit given a little bit of, lax that's when my childhood officially started, right? You talk to girls, you hang out with guys and all that stuff. And that's when it started. But then again, in 2010, it all came crashing down because of the regime change in the Philippines. So I had a regular high school, I played volleyball, right? Even though I'm short, played volleyball. I'm tall in the Philippines, I guess. But played volleyball for a while. Dabbled in basketball, didn't end well. And then Dude, we dabbled in basketball, and then we went up against like an American high school team, and it was like, no, it was impossible. Like they were just like dunking on us all the time. But
Wow.
up until like there was a regime change, and all of a sudden my dad was ousted from his position as a district attorney, or a provincial attorney in the Philippines. So that went on to lead me to my mom being like, hey, we can't do this no more. You know, we're like we're being politically targeted at the time, right? Because it was the opposite regime. So like without directly attacking us, they would like assassinate one of my drivers, right? Just to prove a point that they can touch me. Like I was literally inside my school, and they would be like, they shot the driver outside as I was walking out, and then the security guard had to pull me back in.
Like they executed him?
They executed him, man. Like I saw a dude, like he was driving, right? And school, right? Like when you're coming up.
Yeah.
As I was coming up, like a motorcycle just literally pulled up to the side of the vehicle that I was in and just pop, pop, pop.
Bro,
Yeah.
I seen all kinds of fucking videos on the internet
Yeah,
like
man.
that, dude.
I lived that when I was
you
younger.
fucking lived that shit?
I was like, I think I was like what, like 2009. I think it was like 11 or 12 or something. And I was like nothing, man. But the thing is that my dad came from like poverty, right? My dad was like a janitor, and he became a lawyer, right? He paid himself to be a lawyer from being a janitor. And he always said that you gotta fend for your own. So at a young age, I was always been like around firearms, you know. It's I guess it's been like that, just I guess like an upbringing wise.
Yeah.
And so it was after that happened, I got moved into a different school, right? A little better town, and this is kind of where the connection to the Marine Corps started, because that school was built by the Marines.
Oh,
Right?
really?
So I went to a school that was built by Marines, or at least like they had like a little plaque right there. Right? I think they put the foundations down or something, but nobody could touch that because that's an American-founded school, right? It's an international school. So if you touch that, like you're not only are you attacking American citizens that are living in the Philippines, you're also attacking the rich and the famous right there, right? So nobody wanted to touch that area right there, or else you'd be like making enemies of yourself. So I went to that school, and that's kind of where like, you know, part of the school's mantra is like, hey, you know, there's this big bad American Marines out there that go kick ass, but they also, you know, calm themselves down and actually help out in like the typhoons in the Philippines. You know, every time we have an earthquake, the Marines would always be there.
Yeah, all
So-
the humanitarian assistance.
All the
stuff.
humanitarian assistance, man. Like, so this was, I think, 2010 now, and I was a little older, right? And I was just immersing myself on like American corpsmen, like with corpsmen and like Seabees, I think. Navy Seabees would come into the school and like kind of interact with us, right? And that's always my dream, man. I was like, I gotta be like that one day, you know.
Right.
But you know, the only option at the time was being in the Philippine Marine Corps, which gets paid like $2 a day. So that wasn't an option, right? My dad was not gonna let me do that. And so
The Philippine Marines.
Philippine Marines, man,
Right.
they get paid like trash.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
it's a volunteer force and they don't have a lot of money. But
Yeah.
so you know that this was like on the end of like my high school career, like high school. My mom decided to just move us out of the Philippines, right? Because me and my brother never really had a childhood.
Yeah.
We were always constantly under wraps, right? Never really had like friends, I guess, in the neighborhood because you were not allowed to go out. You know, you're not allowed to go out in the gate. And the only friends you had was the people that are working there. But then again, there's no kid really around that area.
Yeah. Well, dude, if I fucking was your neighbor or whatever, and I had a son, I wouldn't want him hanging out with you.
To be honest, man, no.
Fuck, dude, that's dangerous.
Yeah, that's dangerous, man. That's dangerous, yeah. And so that's when, in my fourth year high school, you know, that's when, you know, like kind of everything steamed down. Everything steams down, right? Regime change, everything's hot, and then it steams down. So, you know, back to regular stuff, right? Being high school kids, you know, going out and all that stuff. So that was fun, you know. I feel like my childhood started when I was in high school because that's when I was actually, like I was let out of the closet, right? Like you can just do whatever you want now to a certain extent.
Right.
But then again, the Philippines is like, it's a crazy place, man. Like at least where I'm at, which is the Mindanao area, which is super like war torn. What ended up happening is my mom was like, I didn't know this at the time, so she filed for a petition for us to come to the States, right? Because she's like, yeah, I'm not gonna have these kids repeat the cycle of them getting into politics or them getting a business here, and then repeat the cycle on their kids. So my mom bought land in America. That's what she did. She got like, I think it's like an investor's visa or something. So she moved out here early, like maybe a year ahead or 2 years ahead of us, and she kind of established us here in the States. She bought, like a little house in like Whittier, right? I don't know why, but Whittier, much low. So we had a little town in Whittier, and then my mom was able to file for a green card for me and my little brother to come out from the Philippines to here.
Nice.
So I was studying, I don't know why, but I was studying philosophy at the time in the Philippines. And on my second year, my dad was like, "You're not going to go back to school." I was like, "What do you mean? Like, are we broke? Like, can we not afford to go to school?"
Right.
Because, and then he's like, "No, you're going to America." And I was like, at the time, I was like, "Oh, no, there's no way. I'm going to leave all my friends. Like, I'm barely like able to hang out. Like in high school, my dad was like, you know what? Here's a car, right? 17-year-old. He's like, here's a car, here's a gun. You're good.
Wow.
Right. He always had a dude follow me though. He always had like a little car follow me, right?
Yeah.
But I was like on my own, right, at that time. And so he's like, no, you're moving to America. So in 2014, I migrated to the United States, man.
Wow.
That's my childhood, right? There's nothing much to it, like in terms of like fun, like good stuff. But man, like,
dude, what do you mean nothing much to it? That's a fucking wild childhood, dude.
yeah, I just sucked. It sucked, man.
Wow.
Like it sucked because you could see, like, you got one of the higher houses, and you would see like kids playing, and I would always ask as a kid, I remember it, can I go play? And they're like, no, you can't. You get kidnapped,
Wow, man.
Yeah, so I moved to the States, and that's when I moved to the States, and my mom was starting to get sick at the time, right? I don't know if you have Filipino friends, but we eat a lot of oil. We just dunk oil. So my mom was starting to get sick, so she started going to dialysis. So when I got here, I immediately, instead of pursuing philosophy, because I always wanted to be a lawyer, right? Philosophy or psychology, I went into nursing. So did nursing for a while to help out my mom, right? Just for her to like feel confident that like, well, every Filipino's a nurse, I guess, but
Bro.
dude.
Hey, my wife and I literally this past Sunday night just went to see Joe Coy in Ontario.
That's
and
awesome.
It's a fucking so hilarious. He was talking about this exact thing, bro.
The Philippine, like literally the Navy is full of Filipinos, and then when they get out, they become nurses. That's just what happens. And so, yeah, so my mom was like, hey, I want you to be able to take care of your brother, because my dad wasn't able to come to the States. He can't pass a background check. Like, he just can't pass a background check.
Right.
Like, I don't know what my dad did back in the day. I respect his hustle, right? But, like, I don't know what he did, but he can't pass a background check from the State Department to come to the States. He just can't. And so he was stuck in the Philippines, and so me and my mom were here, and he's like, yo, you need something tangible, because back here we were like, I was humbled when I first got here, right? I was like, oh, you can take a bus? Like, what is that? Like,
Yeah.
oh, what's a coin? I'm just kidding, but like, like when I first gone to school here, like I was taking the bus. Like I was 17, I didn't have a driver's license here, and that humbled me a lot, man. I was like, I went from like, like the kid from Narcos, all the way to like, 8 Mile type crap, right? And I was like, oh my god, like this sucks, But hey, I think that's a good lesson for me actually, to get humbled down, like becoming the kid that had one of the 4 Xbox 360s in your entire city.
Oh wow.
All the way down to you can't even afford an Xbox 360 in America, So that's a big gap. So when I got here, it was just me and my mom. My mom and my little brother, so I had to figure out something. So went nursing, graduated from that, and then in 2014, right before like maybe 6 months prior to graduation, my dad passed away in the Philippines, right? Cirrhosis in the liver. Was able to go to his funeral, all that stuff, and so my mom was heartbroken. So 2015 went to I did LVN, but right before I graduated from LVN, my mom passed away too, right, out of like a broken heart, and she had like liver issues already. So she passed away. So I was like, dude, I was literally 18 or 19 at the time, and I had my little LVN job, and I was like, I gotta make mortgage. I was like, how the hell do you do this? Like what's mortgage? What's car insurance? What's like phone bills? Like what is this?
Right.
And I had my little brother at the time, which was what, like 13, 14 at the time. I was like, fuck. Like that was the hardest part of my life. But I think that set me up, set me up for success in the future, because at the onset, it was just me and him. Like, there's nobody else here in America. You're like a 19-year-old, and for some reason now you're the next of kin of your mom. You had this house. You had cars that I don't know why I drove a Beamer, but I drove a Beamer, right? For no reason. And so I had all these like bills and stuff, I was able to like at least elicit some help from like my family in the Philippines, but it was just hard, I felt like my paycheck would go and just get drained immediately. And at the same time trying to take care of like a little, like essentially at the time, somebody trying to go to middle school still. And him adjusting to the culture here too was really hard. And so eventually one of my, I did have a cousin, he flew over, he's like, yo, this is not sustainable for you guys. The people in the Philippines are going to stop sending you money, right? They're going to stop sending you money, and they're going to, like, what do you call that? They're going to, like, take this house away from you. So what she did was she's like, I'll take care of your little brother, right? We're going to sell this house, which we did. Whatever money we sold in the house, that's going to help you guys start over, So she went with my little brother, which she moved to California by then from Georgia. She took care of my little brother, right? And that's for me. For the first time in my life, I was like, nobody's telling me what to do, right? I have enough funds to get me through like 4 years of not doing anything, right? But I didn't want to do that. What do I do? So this was 2016 at the time. I was like, let's join the Marine Corps. Why not? Like, I've always wanted to join the Marine Corps.
Right.
Yeah, so this leads me into like my enlistment times. Yeah.
Okay, so what were you living where in Whittier at the time? Whittier?
I was living in Whittier, at the time.
So did you go to recruiting office out there?
Yeah, I went to the El Monte recruiting office. Yeah,
Okay.
which I still visit those guys there. Not same recruiters, but I have like on my classes I have like a Toys for Tots like box.
Nice.
Nice. I definitely was like, definitely the Marine Corps saved my life.
Yeah. So and you signed up to do what?
Combat engineer. Right.
Combat engineer.
It wasn't sold the way it was sold, but it definitely was a combat engineer.
How'd he sell it?
So, cool guy, right? I was like 230 pounds at this point, man.
Yeah.
And my max weight, I think, was like 160. So I walk into the office, fat as hell, right? Like literally just probably got out of Carl's Jr. Walk in and he's like, I want to be in the Marine. And he looked at me. Like one recruiter was like, hey man, you got to lose weight real quick. And this Filipino recruiter, he's like, you know what? Like, come here. Like, let me help you out, right? He's like, I didn't know what the pulley program was, right? But some people laugh at the pulley program, but that helped me out a lot, man.
Yeah.
Helped me out a lot. And he's like, look, I'm going to take a risk on you, right? I'm going to make you work out of the pulley program. Once you reach like 15 pounds before your max weight, I'm going to have you sign a contract. So while I was working as a nurse, I would just come back like on like Tuesday and Thursday, just work out with these guys. He kind of took me under his wing, cool guy. Unfortunately passed because of a motorcycle accident, right? He took me under his wing. He's like, and then, hey man, he made me lose weight in eight months. Like I think it was like went from 230 to like 145 in like 8 months, which is a crash diet at the time. And when he said, he's like, what do you want to do? I was like, hey, when I was younger, like Marines built my school. And he's like, dude, I'm going to get you combat engineering, right? I was like, combat engineering? What is that? He's like, it's just like, cool job, man. You go humanitarian missions, you build houses in Malaysia, the Philippines. It's cool, dude. Like, you get your carpentry certificate and all that stuff. I was like, dude, sign me up,
Yeah.
And then he's like, you get to play with explosives. I'm like, done, done. And so I signed up, and March of 17, I went to boot camp. Yeah.
Wow.
Got out, boot camp, had my little brother there, and then, that was a cool, fun time. You lived up Marine/recruit days you have, and then I went to my schoolhouse, which is in Courthouse Bay in, like, North Carolina.
Okay. That's the schooling to be a combat engineer.
To be combat engineer,
right.
yeah. And that was a realization. I was like, wait, hold up. We probably, the 4 months I was there, we tackled like building something like 3 days. And it was all about explosives. Like I'm talking about like teaching us how to find explosives. I was like, are we EOD? I was like, nah, you're like you're not EOD because we can't afford to certify you. So we're going to teach you everything but you can't blow up anything more than like 100. I think it's like 120 millimeter any ordnance. I was like, well, that's great. And so yeah, so it was like they taught us like I was just living the Marine life at this point. They taught us like explosives, how to calculate explosives, improvise explosives, right? And then they made me sign to be in a watch list. That's kind of messed up. And so
They made you sign up to be on a watch
dude,
list?
like, yeah, they told us, like, hey, you guys are in a watch list. See that little contract that you sign up? Yeah. I don't know if it was true the first time I was messing with us, but I thought it was true because I did sign a piece of paper.
Wow.
Yeah, apparently, like...
Because they were teaching you some crazy shit.
Because, like, it was weird. Like, it's like teaching somebody to build IEDs, but you don't label it as teaching somebody IEDs. You're labeling it as... This is you knowing how to disarm it or like look for it, but in order for you to know how to learn it, we got to teach you how to make it. Right. So we were making like IEDs out of like pizza boxes and all that type of sort of stuff.
So shit, if you're on the watch list, you're probably on that list forever.
I don't know. Honestly, I never really looked into it. I hope not.
That's crazy.
I mean, I've been able to pass background checks, so that's good.
Yeah, good.
I mean, it's not bad, I guess, because it's just because you're watches, that's not bad.
Right.
That's what they said. I hope it's not true, but I'm sure it is. So I put like 3. I think they make you like choose 3, if I remember. 3 places where you want to be.
Yeah.
I primarily picked Japan, right? That was my goal. Like go to Japan, like live the life over there, get away real quick, kind of like explore the Pan-Pacific region because apparently tickets are cheap as hell when you're out there. And then California and then North Carolina, which is the 3 choices you get, I guess. And then they put me in Camp Pendleton, California. I was like, man, you got to be kidding me. My initial orders was Japan, and then somebody got married to somebody that was stationed in Japan, and they had to give him that slot. I was like, man. So I went to Camp Pendleton, and then I checked in, and then they assigned me to 1st Combat Engineer Battalion. And I was like, I was still hopeful. In my mind, I was like, I'm going to be making like houses and like, bungalows, whatever, overseas soon.
Yeah.
And then when I got there, they were like, all right, for second, like Bravo company, Alpha company. They look at me, they're like, Mobility Assault Company. I was like, wait, what? Like, what is that? And so went down into the lot, and all I saw was like, I told the corporal, obviously getting yelled at, and he's like, what do we do? He's like, if you thought that you were going to build something, you're never going to build something here. We're going to look for IEDs the entire time. So I was like, man, that sucked. That sucked.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Maybe, it's a blessing in disguise. At that point, I was like, whatever, hey, let's try this out, right? This was the time where I was in Mac 2, or I think Mac 1, and they were about to go to Syria, right? I think they were going to support some RD unit over there that was going to, that would constantly help the local forces, but they would always constantly move, and they would get hit by IEDs because when they would move, they would have no support from us. So the Mobile Assault Company, Platoon 2, or 2nd Platoon, would go out there. So on that workup, it was cool, workup was good. And then last minute, they were like, you guys are not deploying because they decided to just use air, right? We're pulling out RDs over there. So that was like the first initial one. And then, a bunch of like ITXs, right? And all that stuff. Yeah, my enlistment was pretty uneventful, right? Like it was...
Can you explain to people what an ITX is?
Integrated training exercise.
Yeah.
They would they would take like all the... It's like pretty much like a massive sim game, man. It's fun.
Right.
They would take like people from a bunch of units and all that stuff, and they would like make you do like the actual
force
on force stuff. Yeah, learn a lot of stuff, I guess. Yeah, 100% that I still take to the civilian world. A lot of the guys there were like veteran, the guys that were like the coyotes. I think that's what they're called, like the instructors, or veterans of like the initial like shooting war in Afghanistan and Iraq. And they were just like dumping knowledge on me, and I was that private last corporal. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna write this down, and I still to this day like have those notes, on me. I just read, and they taught us like, pretty much the only time it's not real is when you blow up, is you don't die, I guess, so to speak. So at ITXs, we would come back from that. We would be told that you would be deploying. work up and nothing would happen, right? The Marine Corps, the deployments at this point was dwindling down. And the problem there is like I made myself a Husky team leader, right? A Husky team leader is the team leader that specifically handles like the detection of IEDs and mines and all sorts of stuff. So while everybody in the platoon would get rotated out, they would get rotated out to Alpha Company, Bravo Company, Charlie, because they would get sent to like, like humanitarian deployments, Special Force MAGTAV deployments, 31st MU, all that MUs, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't leave. Like every time a slot would come up, I would volunteer, and the CO would like, nah, we don't really have anybody. Like even just in case we get called up, like we don't have anybody that can lead a Husky team. So just what do you call that? Just stay right here. You'll get the next one. You'll get the next one. So that was a little frustrating, but I'm sure it's a blessing, right? At least I don't have us. It could be worse, right? There's definitely veterans out there that had it worse. So I got stuck in Camp Pendleton up until like 2019. 2019, I was like, I'm done. Like I'm doing the exact same thing every year. I'm like, what is it called? I'm like training people for my replacement, only for them to be like, you know what? They train as a unit now. I'm gonna send them up, and then you can stay here. And they literally made me an official training officer.
Wow.
Training NCO, right? Which is, hey, it's an honor to to teach those guys. I guess that's kind of when I started, to teach people.
Yeah.
Like, and I realized that teaching it actually is the best teacher, man. Like, when I was teaching it, I was reading the books, the curriculum, right, to get certified to even teach this thing, and I realized that I was learning more and more stuff. I was like, hey, I never really noticed that this is that and this is that, So I was a training officer, non-commissioned officer up to 2019, and I was like, hey, sir, like, I'm getting out in 2021. Like, I've been stuck in down here, right, for like almost close to 2.5 years. And can I get a deployment? He's like, you know what? They're looking for combat engineers that are good at finding IEDs, and they're looking for volunteers to go in the Special Force MAGTAV that's going to train this unit of UAE and a bunch of Arab like states that are allies in the States. You're going to go to some big training facility in like UAE, and you guys are going to teach the guys that are actually going to do your job like overseas, right? I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it, right? So I left late 2019, around the September timeframe, and I went, and I think it was the best time of my life, man.
Yeah.
Like training Americans to a certain extent in the States. A lot of the kids, they don't take that seriously.
Right.
Like it sucks. And it's the I'm never gonna deploy syndrome in the Marine Corps right now that I see in the younger kids. They're not taking PT as seriously. They're not taking like RDR, like all the stuff that we train to. A lot of these kids don't even want to volunteer for like schools. Like hey, urban leaders course, like dude,
Man, I just before you move on, you just made me think of something because I spent a lot of time in Reddit, that app, engaging with military communities, and one of the recent posts I read about overweight Marines, like it's a problem, and I fucking read all these comments of people talking about, oh, it's so hard and all this, and I'm like, what the fuck am I reading right now? Are these fucking Marines talking right now, dude? Yep. Oh, I couldn't believe it. I went in there and I was just like, I forgot what comment I wrote, I said, but it fucking blew my mind that I was reading Marines talking about the struggle of fucking, being in shape. Yeah. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Like, anyways, if you're in a line platoon, line company, right, a line battalion, like infantry, like LA, light armored reconnaissance, like engineering, combat engineering, because there's also regular engineering. There's just no choice. Like you don't get fat because you do like hikes every day, Yeah. But people do, man. Like, and I found myself like in that spot, believe it or not. Like I was like borderline, like on my, what is it called? Like my weight. I never wanted to tape out. That's one thing I didn't want to do. I was borderline my weight.
The height weight requirement.
Height weight requirement. Because depending on who checks me, I'm either 5'3" or 5'2", and sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, you're 5'3", so you're good," and then 5'2", I'm like, "Oh man, I'm like a little over." But that's the crazy thing though, because you could always out PT that. You could be the fattest Marine in the world, and if you have like 285, nobody would bat an eye on you.
Wow.
So It's real, man. It's real.
Wow,
Especially
that's crazy.
a lot of the kids don't take it as seriously because I feel like they have the mentality of I'm never gonna deploy, you know.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we're talking about this a couple right before I got out. We'll come back to the thing later, but right before I got out, I have this guy named Clark. Right, Clark, good dude. Never took. I mean, good guy, but never took the training. Like he thought it was a 9 to 5. You know, I'm never gonna deploy. Nothing's gonna deploy. The Marine Corps not going anywhere. If I'm gonna deploy, I'm gonna deploy a training mission. Nothing's gonna happen, right? And you know, he was lackadaisy in the training, and I was hard on this kid, man. I was like, you know what, dude? If you're gonna mess it up, we're gonna go PT. You know, if you mess it up, you're gonna teach it back to me. And then he went to the airport in Kabul. I mean, what is it? Like
in Afghanistan?
Afghanistan, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like,
oh, he was out there.
he was out there, you know. And he called me when he got back, crying, right? Because he saw his friends die out there when the explosion.
Yeah.
He's like, and this is what my touching moments is like. We kind of reconnected because I hated the kid when I was in, you know. He's like, if it wasn't for you, man, like, I don't think I would have made it out there. You know what I mean? Because he's like, a lot of the people there didn't know what they were doing because they thought that they would never be put in a situation in real life, you know?
Yeah.
And that's crazy, man. That's a crazy concept that, like, a lot of the younger Marines, like, they would come in and I saw on TikTok, right, just like I found you, they would say, oh, it's a shame that I'm getting out of the Marine Corps and never saw combat. You know what I mean? And I told them, man, it's not like that, man. Like, dude, those guys that did it probably are wishing that they didn't sell combat, you know? So,
dude, there's so much more that you can get out of military service, right? Regardless of what branch,
yeah.
than fucking combat, right? Yeah,
that's the last thing combat people do,
yeah.
man.
But I mean, there's so much more that these military branches offer that if you fucking take it serious and you do the work and you put the effort into it and the focus in it and the discipline and consistency, instead of just fucking sitting there waiting for something to happen, you know, and crying about, oh, we're not in a fucking, wartime or something or conflict. I'm not going to go nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, take the fucking opportunity to improve yourself every fucking day. That shit drives me nuts, man.
Dude, like, I see all the time, like, because it also depends on the leader, right? And I think that's because the Marine Corps has, like, I think my personal opinion has two different types of, like, NCOs, right? Obviously, there's subcategories, but there's two main ones. It's the do as I tell you and because I told you, and the servant leader, right?
The authoritarian and the servant,
yeah, servant leader, man. Like, if you're under a leadership like that, and I was under leadership like that, it is refreshing, man. Like, it's crazy because he would not do anything that you wouldn't, like, he wouldn't let you do anything that he wouldn't do. But I learned so much. Like, I've had bad ones, you know?
Right.
Bad ones in a sense that they mean well, they just don't know how to, like, you know, push it out properly. Because, I think that's part of leadership too, you know. In the Marine Corps right now, in my opinion, right when I get out, there's too much peacetime politics, man. It's crazy. Like, people are, instead of doing right with your guys, and I see this personally too around my unit, instead of doing right with your guys, like, hey, let's go train, you know. Hey, you messed up, right? You messed up right now. I'm gonna train you so that when we go to combat, you can save my life.
Right. No,
it's not like that anymore. I'm gonna report him so I look good and get promoted.
That's the bullshit politics right there, man.
It happens, man. It happens a lot, man.
I've seen it in military and I've seen it in fucking law enforcement. The same shit, dude. Yeah.
Same crap, man.
So talk to me about, so after this deployment, you went to UAE, trained those guys, and then did you get out after that? Yeah,
so I trained those guys. It was good, man. Like, the people, they thought it was real because it was real for them, you know. Yeah. They were looking for IDs. Like, 5 minutes, like, literally 5 months prior, like, they walk into a compound and like 38 of them just went to dust, man. They didn't see it. So it was refreshing for me because at the same time, wherever I would go, I just like, write notes, you know, like write notes, especially when I was in the border, like doing that Trump thing border. I was just writing notes, you know. After I got back, it was 2020. And that's the crazy thing. I got back from one of the last flights out of Kuwait to come back to the States. And I came back and the world was like in The Walking Dead. Like, I was bused from, like, I forgot what, March Air Force Base back to Camp Pendleton. Dude, there was nobody there.
No shit.
Nobody was there. And for some reason, people were trying to get toilet paper, right? And people were watching Tiger King. Like,
fuck.
Dude, I was like, what's Tiger King? One, why are we like looking for toilet paper, right?
Right.
And DoorDash was the thing now, right? I was like, man, I came back into that world, you know. And so I was in the barracks. And I was like, man, we're not doing anything. You know, we're quarantined. Like we would do like half days and half ons. I was like, man, this is not it, man. Like I feel like I'm getting fat. I feel like I'm not doing anything. I'm not like I just feel unaccomplished, right? Because one, you can't train. You just can't train because you're infecting people. So I reached out to a bunch of like training companies around the area. I wasn't even like a training company. I was an RSO, right? I was trying to be an RSO. I reached out to a couple in
Riverside
Oceanside.
Sheriffs?
Range
Range
safety officer. Yeah.
Okay.
I was reaching out. I was like, hey, do you guys need help? You know, all that stuff. He's like, no, not really, man. You know, because I'm just a Marine. I'm not even an infantry guy. So everybody's just like, whatever. And so I reach out. I think I reached out to like 28 companies, and only one, two of them responded. Only one was actually like, hey, you know, come on up. And that's where I found like Tap Rack Bang, you know. And the owner is a former Marine as well.
Nice.
Owner at the time, not co-owner. Tap Rack Bang was like, hey, dude, just come on up. And this was the ending of like the beginning of like the March-ish, like where like the initial shutdown was. He's like, come on in. Let me just show you what we do, you know. And so whenever I would not be in the Marine Corps, whenever they would be like, just stay home because the people, you got to do left seat, right seat because they got to work. And so you guys don't cross-contaminate, I guess. I would just go Tap Rack Bang. I would just be like, it took him like, Ernie Medina is the name of the owner at the time. He's like, I'm going to have to teach you everything. You know what I mean? Like pistol shooting in the Marine Corps is not that great, right? Because you got, you know, it's the lowest common denominator. Rifle shooting, he kind of brought me up along, like as the ride, right? And then my first CCW class, he's like, hey, come teach CCW class with me, was, what is it called? June, right? In June, there was a demand for concealed carry permits because everyone
started going fucking buying guns, didn't
they? The world was falling apart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody bought guns, man. I can't even buy a gun. Like, I think I still have a gun that I wanted from last year that I still haven't gotten. But everybody's buying guns, and
why can't you buy it?
Dude, it's out of stock, man.
Because of fucking the supply.
I put a deposit somewhere at like at a gun store in SoCal, and then they haven't gotten it, man.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm trying to buy an AK. That's the problem. But so 2020, I kind of like saw like, oh man, there's life outside the Marine Corps, you know? Because for me at the time, I didn't see my family at all, man. Like I didn't see my brother. Like maybe I saw my brother once or twice, but I would be the guy that's like, I'm gonna stay, you know, here. You know, I would volunteer for duty during Christmas and all that stuff because I just, you know, it was the Marine Corps was my savior, but I hated my civilian life. Civilian life, you know, I got dead parents. I got a brother I got to take care of. You know, I love him, but like it's not like any 22-year-old is gonna be like, hey, let me take care of my brother. You know, it's a shitty thing to say, but it is. Hey, that's how I felt at the time, and I didn't come home. Like I would send him money, the money that he needed, but I just didn't see him, man. Like I never saw I have half sisters, half siblings. I never saw them like until 2020. 2020 kind of brought me back to the civilian world. Ernie had a successful transition, and he was like, the Marine Corps is not all there is in life, you know? Like, because I had the thing where it's like, because I was training a lot of people so much that I felt like if I move out, like these guys are not going to get the top quality training that they need to survive in an ID environment out there. And he brought me back down, and he's like, the Marine Corps is going to keep going, whether you're there or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
And so I was in 2020, I think around the September-ish, August-ish, re-enlistment, right? He's like, hey, you're qualified for re-enlistment. You're qualified for an extension to stay because of COVID-19. What do you want to do? And I was like, it took me a while. I was like, I think I'm going to get out. You know, I think I'm going to get out. And because for me, in my head, I was like, I wasn't going to get out of the Marine Corps without getting shot at, you know? And I think that's, everybody romanticizes that, you know what I mean? Even though I had experience prior, but I guess in the back of my mind, I was like, man, I really want to get into a situation where I can shoot back to, you know?
You want to put your skills to the test.
Yeah, because I guess when I was a kid, I was like, man, I got shot at, you know, when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there, and I felt so hopeless, you know. And for the first time in my life, I had the capability to be like, do something, and I didn't have a chance to do it. But I accepted it. Like, I went to, I think the USO, is that USO? Or no, Single Marine Program. Single Marine Program had a program where it's like, they were like, hey, we're going to take you out to the range, you know. You can shoot with a bunch of the older veterans, right? You know, a bunch of old people. And interacting with them around this COVID time frame. One, it was scary because you had to like stay away because they're a little older. It's opened my mind. I was like, you don't have to get shot at, you know, because they didn't like it. It sucked for them. Like, I met this guy, I forgot his name, man. Crappy memory, but he took a round in like Afghanistan and he can't walk again. You know, he had to get wheelchaired everywhere. And I was like, why am I romanticizing that?
Right.
You know? So I was like, I think I'm ready to get out, you know? So at this point, I told man, getting out of the Marine Corps was so hard. Like, there's so many requirements that you had to do. I had to go through my entire requirements, like going through like TRS or something like that.
Yeah,
transition.
all the separation classes.
All the separation
and all
classes, you know. All the separation classes. And I did want to go into law enforcement. Believe it or not, I took a test for Chula Vista PD.
Yeah.
Passed everything, but then again, they had a hiring freeze because of COVID. I was like, man, that sucked, you know. I was like, that was my plan. I was 6 months out from getting out in January, and I was gonna go to Chula Vista PD. I was like, man, they really pan out, you know. I was like, you know what? I do this little gig, right? I never thought that would be, because for me, it's like, I hated being an entrepreneur. I don't like you, right? Because I saw my mom, you know, they were stressed all day long, you know, and I know you can understand. You're stressed all day long. Work never stops, you know.
Never.
And I guess I had that in my mind. I was like, I'm not gonna like that, man. I'm gonna work at 8, get out at 5, and then that's it. Call it a day, you know. Which is a bad way of thinking about it, you know. Until that didn't pan out, and the only offer I had was for Upland PD, right? I had an offer of Upland PD. I was like, man, don't really want to do that. So I kind of sat down myself and I was like, I talked to my mentor, or Ernie. He's like, dude, like, what's stopping you from being an instructor, you know? He's like, I really want to help people, man. Like, I want to help, like, what do you call that? I want to, you know, like, I guess, like, take the cat off the tree, you know? Like, help people become a cop and all that stuff, because I feel like that's the next transition for me as, you know, serving the people. And he's like, oh, yeah, you can pursue that, which I still am pursuing that. But he's like, you know, you can also save people by teaching them to be independent away from law enforcement, you know? Not that law enforcement never comes, it's just that, you know, a lot of the times, and it sucks, it's just crappy statistics because I feel like law enforcement's not funded enough, right? But by the time they respond, like, what are the chances a cop's gonna be at a corner where you're getting robbed?
Right.
You know, super low. And
so the next best thing is for you to be trained.
To be trained, yeah.
Right.
Carry your own gun, like legally carry your own gun, right? And it didn't hit me until I talked to the recruiters at Upland. They're like, dude, like, we encourage people to carry, you know? He was honest with me. He was candid. He's like, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Response time is crap.
Yeah.
Like, a lot. I've been in law enforcement. He's like, you've been in law enforcement 20 years, man. And I can count in my hand how many times I've actually stopped somebody from getting mugged.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's why they're called responders.
Yeah.
Right? First responders. So then what? Then you started your own gig or what?
Yeah, I was like, you know what? Let's do it, you know? Let's train. So we started this, like, part of Chaprac Bank to where he was just doing CCWs, right? And he was doing a little bit of private session, and I would just assist him. And he's like, why don't you start your own company? Start your own LLC. I'll subcontract you to under mine so you can have the backing of, like, a website, a company that already has Yelp reviews, right? So you're not some random dude in Instagram trying to train people. And I was like, you know what, let's do it, you know? And I think that was the best decision of my life, to be honest with you. It's accomplishing because out of all the people I've trained since 2020 all the way now, I've already had, like, 2 people that come back to me and be like, hey, Brendon, if I didn't have my gun, me and my wife would have been murdered. You know? And that's accomplishing, man. One did shoot his gun, and the other one, he just brandished it, and the guy ran away.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized it's like, hey, like you really don't make money waiting for a retirement check, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, might as well be an entrepreneur. And I hated the fact for a while. I fought it so much, you know, I would be like trying to find jobs that could match the money I was making because I was just like, man, this is just too much work. And until I realized, like, hey, you gotta hustle, man. You gotta control. You gotta let money work for you instead of you working for money.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, it clicked. Like 2020, I set myself a goal. I was like, hey, I'm gonna start this training thing. My goal is to train like 8 people a week. That's it. And yeah, I hit that goal.
So what's your did your company have a specific name?
Yeah, my LLC is called Bros Tactical. That was the coolest thing I could think of at the time.
Bro Stacks?
Bros Tactical.
Oh, Bros Tactical.
Yeah, I don't know why, but that was the coolest thing. But the main company itself is called Tap Rack Bang Training, right? We primarily do CCWs for Riverside County, San Diego, soon to be San Diego County, but Riverside County, Orange County, and even LA County, right? We've had people pass LA County CCWs.
Nice.
And so that's my current main gig right now. And primarily I do private sessions. I train people at a one-on-one basis. It's kind of like a personal coach type deal, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my transition out. It's definitely been rough. It's rough because you will go from like having a steady paycheck to like figuring stuff out on your own. You know, people be complaining that you don't get paid enough in the Marine Corps until you realize that like mortgage and, you know, and like bills is a real thing when all the food's been taken care of. And that's why when I got out, I told them like this November, right? I had like a little reunion with the guys that are still here. I told them like, dude, when you get out, you gotta hit real life, man. Because like a lot of the guys that you still have there, I was talking to the corporals, right? And tell a lot of the guys you have right there that's coming in, more than likely they got recruited out of high school, you know? Like, not saying that Marine Corps is not real life experience, but these kids never had to pay for bills. You know, they buy a Mustang for no reason, right? They buy for GTR for no reason. And then, you know, and that was the hardest part of transition, right? Coming from, you wake up every morning, you got your boys on you, you know, you guys go PT, you guys do the exact same thing every day, to, like, you're on your own. You wake up alone in your apartment, right? You go to work, you hustle, you go to Instagram, you make phone calls and all that stuff. And I think that's one thing that the hardest part of the transition for me, and I'm lucky enough to say that finances wasn't the hardest part of my transition, but I think it was the camaraderie, man. It's crazy. Like when you get out, like you lose that.
And you don't find it again.
And you don't find it anywhere, man.
Yeah.
You don't find it anywhere. As much as I want to say that, you know, the civilian friends that I have, which I love them all.
Yeah.
Civilian friends that you have can relate to you as much as you can. You can't, man. It's hard. The camaraderie is just a little bit different. And I think that was the hardest part of transition, you know, because I was single. I was doing my own thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so right now I primarily do concealed care permits, right? I train people that literally, I think 2021, I trained about like 200 people. Not in total, but just 200-ish people that said, Brendon, like, I'm scared for my life. I have no gun.
Right.
I have no gun. I want to be able to defend myself. I want to carry.
Okay.
And so usually I guide them, you know, from the purchasing process all the way up to them. Like I had a recent success story of like she's divorced now, but at the time she was just beat up, man. The ex-husband would just, you know, ex-husband was like a gang member, you know, would beat her up, would scare her with like illegal guns and stuff, you know, and she couldn't say anything, you know, and she ran away from that, you know. And the guy went to prison, right? And I think it was like last year, where it was like, I think she was calling me. That's why she reached out to me on Instagram, because she wanted a way to defend herself, because she said that there's a possibility that the prisons are like letting out more people or something like that. And she's like, hey, I gotta be able to defend myself. And I was like, and initially she came to me, she's like, you know, just regular, like direct message. She's like, I just need something to defend myself with. And she's like, you like prefer like any personal defense classes? I was like, man, I'll be honest with you, like, I told her, like, I'll be honest with you. Like, if a dude that's 6'3", 350 pounds is gonna attack me and you, regardless of how long we've been practicing martial arts, there's nothing we can do. You know what I mean? That's just the reality, you know?
Right.
We can romanticize ourselves. I don't know if you watch, like, you know, those videos nowadays that's circulating about self-defense in Detroit. But, like, it's crazy, you know? Like,
Yeah.
and it's a crazy prospect because I realized that then when I was younger, like, I was vulnerable. Like, no matter how big and bad you think you are, you know, there's always going to be somebody bigger than you. And I guess that's kind of why I love training civilians and people, not just civilians, everybody in general, to be able to, like, rely on themselves for self-defense.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, man, like, I love cops and I train cops, but you're right. They always tell me, like, hey, man, we're responders. We're not gonna be there. We're not gonna be there pre-crime.
Yeah.
You know, and that hit me. Like when he said we're not gonna be there pre-crime, that hit me so much.
Right.
I was like, yeah.
So where's the best place for people to find you?
Instagram. I have my Instagram outshooting myself. Outshooting_myself. Brendon.
Okay.
That's the best way to find me. If not, you can look up taprackbangtraining.com, and you can actually book me there as well
Cool.
for training and all this stuff. Yeah.
Right on, man. All right, we're gonna wrap it up, Brendon. Before I do, I always give everybody an opportunity to say any last words. If you want to say anything before we cut the tape.
Yeah. I think my biggest advice to my old self, right? I can only give advice to myself, I guess, is don't let your past determine what you are in the future. You know. I think just because I was like 250 pounds didn't mean I didn't become a Marine. Just because I was 5'3" didn't mean I became like a squad leader, right? Just because I'm 5'3" doesn't necessarily mean I can't hike with the tall boys. Or just because you're a 5'2" lady doesn't mean you can't defend yourself against a 350 pound dude. And I guess that's my thing, is that the world is never gonna be fair. But don't let the past define you, you know? Like, you can always, like, forge on forward, because, like, I feel like, especially in America, man, like, coming from, like, like a third world country, the American dream is real, like, for me, you know? It's very real.
Awesome. Hey, well, thanks for being here, brother. It's a big contribution to sit here and take the seat and
100%.
tell your story, so we appreciate it big time, man. Thank you for your
Of course.
service.
Anytime. Thank you.
Push it to the limit, I can't go no more. Red light, no way, I'm coming back home. Long dirt road all on my own.